Hey guys, welcome back. It's day 2 of the event and the build is really coming together. I'm already cruising through T16 maps. There were definitely some roadblocks along the way, but today I'll share some key changes that I made to the build and to the progression strategy that made a huge difference. So I've got some early progression tips to help you push through the Atlas faster. A third and final time that I'll talk about Kingsmarch setup probably, and all the adjustment that I made to transition into a late game farming build. On top of that, I found a really nice and amazing new defensive setup that fixed a lot of the issues from day one, making the build way more consistent and tanky, and trust me, it's a game changer. I'm still fine-tuning things, but with the setups, you should die way less in maps, making the whole experience a lot smoother. But enough talk, let's see how this build performs. Alright, so I'm going to grab a random T16 map, and I'm going to run it. So to show you how this build performs in maps, and Ochre is a really good map for me to showcase because there are porcupine in this map. Keep in mind this is on a 5-link setup, so we are still missing a lot of damage. And so far I have cleared Guardians map, Elder maps, and 2 Void Stone. But for more comfy bossing kills, we need to get a few more upgrades in the damage departments. So more on that in the next updates. For today though, I make a few key changes for the build. First, you can see that we are now able to freeze the monster, and especially the porcupine. If you don't freeze them and they die, they will shoot out a lot of spike, and that will probably kill you if you are on the previous setup because we have no way to mitigate or evade those things. And this is a Betrayal strategy that I'm running, and I'll talk more on that later, but it is, like I mentioned in the previous video, I'm still running this. I have actually bought a few idols and I will go over them later in the video as well. This is a really good setup to help me get more experience and also progressions, and farming Betrayal right now is actually not very profitable. However, later as the game goes on, the Veil Up is going to increase in price. I already see the price go up right now. It's about 1.4 divide, and eventually it will go up higher. So yeah, if you are a Betrayal enjoyer, just save your divine and it's a good hedge against inflation. Even though I say hedge, but you should always invest your currency back into the build, make your character stronger to be able to farm harder, and better content is always going to make more currency in the long run. So make it a priority to upgrade your character first. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing in the background, this is the Betrayal mechanics, and there's a way to do this really efficiently, but I don't think I can cover that in this video, so I'll probably make another one if there is enough requests for that. Alright, so back to the video itself. The upgrade that I mentioned before, the body armors, I changed it to Expedition End. This is an amazing body armor that allowed you to be able to freeze enemies, and that works for Totem as well. So this is going to be a huge quality of life upgrades. No more dying to porcupine, no more dying to a lot of stuff on the maps because you will freeze enemies, so freeze itself or shield itself is a really good form of defensive layers. Also, you'll notice that I have 0 energy shield on me now, and that is because I swapped to the Dance of the Offer boots. This gave me free Onslaught and Agnostic. This also makes life sustain a lot smoother, fixing the awkward mana flash situation that we had before. Because of this, I also dropped with Thief and went with Not a Word, which is absolutely amazing. The blind effect is great, but the real MVP is the stealth effect. So enemies will take a few seconds to even notice that you are there, and by the time that they do, they are already dead or frozen. And the best part is you are no longer getting off screen. Enemies literally don't react fast enough to attack, and this makes the build feel tankier even though my actual max hit hasn't changed too much. We'll dive deeper into that later, but for now you can see that mapping is super smooth by itself. If you're wondering, the MTX that I'm using is Celestial Power Siphon. It looks really good, and I also have to update my filter to match the MTX as well, so this version is going to be a very strict. It is great for endgame mapping, but if you are still in the campaign or progressing in the early map, just stick with the Never Sync loot filter for now. And I'm also running Maven Destructive Play in the background here. This build should be able to farm any T16 contents, currency strategy that you prefer. Overall, today's update is going to help you transition from the day 1 setup into a day 2, which is still going to be an early game mid-budget League starter setups. So let's talk about it. Alright, so let's go over all the upgrades that I did since day 1. The main change here is the additions of Expedition End, and as you can see, I'm still on a 5-link setup, so if you are also using a 5-link, you can drop critical damage support for now. Once you upgrade to a 6-link, adding it back will give you approximately a 34% more damage, which is amazing, but even without it, we are farming T16 map without any issues, so it's not really a big deal. With that being said, upgrading to a 6-link should definitely be your next priority. I've also swapped in the Dance of the Offer, which means now we'll have Onslaught buff up almost all the time. This will let us drop the Silver Flask, freeing up a slot for whatever flask that we want. Right now I'm running a Jade Flask, but eventually I'll switch over to a Gold Flash for more item rarity. A quick side note though, rarity in PoE 1 is not as strong as PoE 2. I am using it purely to get more gold drops, which is very important for upgrading and progressing your Kingsmarch. You will notice that I also switched into the League starter setups with 7 minimum power charge. There are a lot of confusions and misconceptions about this topic, so let me elaborate a little bit. The Ascendancy itself gives you +1 to maximum power charge and 4 minimum power charge. Malachi Loops, which is this shield, going to give us +2 to maximum power charge, and then we take the infused notable on the trees for another +1 to maximum power charge. This will bring our maximum power charge to 7 in total. Now, our totems don't actually gain charge, but our power charge will benefit these stats, so our totems will then benefit from our stats as long as we have the charge on us, which means we'll need a total of 7 minimum power charge added to the 4 minimum power charge from the Ascendancy to make it works. And we'll do that by crafting the +1 to minimum power charge on rings. This is the Veil mod, which is going to cost you 1 Exile to craft, and you can ask someone else with that already unlocked to help you, or you can buy a bunch of unveil jewelry and unveil it yourself to unveil this mod. You also get +1 from anointing Disciple of the Forbidden on the breast steel the glove. This is cheap glove and this is a cheap anoint, so it is very budget. This setup by itself will give another +3 to minimum power charge, and then we'll end up with +7 to minimum power charge. This setup is still very budget friendly, I guess for every item except Mind of the Council, which is extremely expensive this league. It is a common drop, however all the mana stacker haven't switched over to Indigon yet, so it is what it is, and I expect the price to drop after the first week. Besides that, I have also upgraded my belt. I have better flash mana recovery rate roll on here, some resistance, strength, and mana. Nothing too crazy. The rings have resist, dexterity if you can get it. The amethyst ring, I drop it myself and unveil the power charge, minimum power charge. So I'm using it for now since it helps a little bit with the chaos resistance. The attribute on the amulets helps with the stats requirements, nothing too fancy. Attributes, life, and maximum mana. In the PoB, we are doing around 3 million DPS with all the configurations set up to be perfect. And if we're looking at the realistic number, I'll say it's about half that. So it is still fine for T16 mapping, and the 7 power charge setup is going to be the biggest DPS boost for you to have. So it's very worth it to accumulate enough currency and transitioning into the setups from the early game setups that I show on day 1. Moving on to the passive skill trees, after the swap I made a few changes, and the first thing I did was to drop the crit chance cluster, because after getting 3 minimum power charge, bringing our power charge to 7, we'll get a lot of crit chance, so this cluster will pretty much overcap your crits and you don't need that. I also took the accuracy cluster over here just to make sure that I hit the 100% hit chance, and this helped a little bit. And make sure you check PoB for your exact stats because it might be different from mine, but eventually you'll get better gears, more dexterity, and you can drop some of these points, including the spell suppressions over here, because Mage Bane will also give spell suppressions from the dexterity, so naturally going up in dex and gearing better gears will make you tankier and stronger. Another important change is that now we are using Dance of the Offer, which means we'll have this keystone over here, Agnostic. So for this keystones, while you're not on full life, we sacrifice 20% of mana per second to recover that much life. This Keystone Agnostic turns mana into life battery, making sustain much smoother. However, there's a catch, and because we are running Precisions and Arrogance, which means the Precisions will reserve a portion of your life, and this reserve line count as not full, so Agnostic will keep draining your mana forever, thinking that it needs to recover your life to full, which it cannot because your life is reserved, so it is a problem and it will drain your mana to 0. To stop this, we'll just take the life mastery node over here. You count as on full life while at 90% or above. This means that as long as Precision reserve less than 10% of your life, Agnostic won't drain your mana. For me, I can run Precisions at level 9, which reserve 9% of my life, keeping me above 91%, and then stopping Agnostic from constantly draining my mana because it can actually heal me to full. If you mess this up and over-level Precisions, your mana will drain to 0 constantly. So to fix that, if you accidentally level up, so I'm just gonna do a demonstration here. I'm going to level up my Precisions, and then you can see my mana is draining to 0 because I cannot get to full life. So what you can do if you accidentally do that is you're going to use 1 orb of scouring and 1 precision gems that you want to de-level. You will sell it to a vendor with the orb of scouring. This is going to de-level your gems by 1 level. It is a vendor recipes. So after that, you can see the reservations and everything will work as intended. A lot of people mess this up, so make sure you understand how it works, because if you have more life, and you can also increase your level of precisions, because precisions will reserve the life based on a number but not percentage. And for the skill gems, everything is pretty much the same. I lost a 6 link, so it's now a 5 link. I take off the critical damage support, and that's about it for these skills. I might add a Spectre setups and drop the cast on death portal thing, but it's quite useful because I still think people can get random death now and then if you are not careful, because again, like I said, the build feels a lot tankier in the setups, but your max hit is actually not better, and so you can still be one-shotted. This version of the build feels really strong, and now we're comfortably farming T16 content. The next step is either to pivot to another build or focus on making some currency and stacking more upgrades into the build. So very quick on the Ascendancies, I dropped Breathe Deep, and now because we have the Agnostic, the Mana Flask is not needed anymore, and we recover life automatically, and it's a lot smoother. So we picked up another word, and that combined with the Expedition End, is going to take our defensive layer to the next level. So this node is insanely good and maybe a little bit broken. Because of the stealth, we never really get hits in map anymore. The monster have a delay time before they actually react to you, and this prevents you from getting hit off screen, which is where most of my death usually happens. Since making the swaps, I am now cruising to level 93, and I haven't really died in any regular maps for the last 20 map or so. Huge shout out to whoever suggests this to me on Discord. You were 100% right, and if you haven't tried this yet, give it a shot and you will see how effective it is. Okay, so here's some tips for you to progress your map faster and sustaining them. As you can see here, I pretty much unlocked everything. I progressed to T16 maps and unlocked a few idle slots. I have got my first 2 voice stones, and pretty much the idol that I was missing, or the setup that I was missing, is getting the correct idol. So you have to buy some of them, but you have to prioritize getting the right idols. And I didn't realize this at first, so I was just putting random idol in here, but spending currency on the correct idol is actually a huge deal for map sustains. You want to use any form of idol that has a tier 1 to 11 maps found have X and X number of chance to become 1 tier higher. And all you need to do, or all you need to know, is that you need to get this number to 100%. And even if it's not 100%, try to get it as close as you can. It is pricey, so don't break your bank, but try to get as close as to 100% as you can if you want to progress from yellow map into T16 maps. This step will be very important because now we no longer have access to Kirak missions, so this will be the only thing that can push you into higher tier maps. After that, you can pick any strategy that you like to farm. For me, for example, I'm choosing to run June and Betrayal. As you can see here, I have the completing your map grants intelligence, which means I get to run more safe house, which means more experience for me. I want to make sure that I have 100% chance to contain Junes, and then I also make sure that the syndicates, whenever I execute them, have 100% chance to gain an additional rank. I'm not going too deep into the setup here since it's probably deserved its own video, but the main takeaway is that you want to get idols with the role maps to tier 1 to 15, have a higher chance to become 1 tier higher. This will help you sustain higher tier map and will be very useful for pushing from yellow into T16 red map much faster. You want to pair it with a strategy that you will enjoy, ideally beginner friendly and league starter friendly as well. My choice is going to be Betrayal. It is best for beginners. It provides really good AXP from the Betrayal safe house. You drop tons of Veils items so you can unlock the craft yourself, and you can farm Catarina as well for a chance at Veil Orb. One thing to remember is that Veil Orbs start cheap very early into the league, but the price will go up over time as people need them for endgame crafting. So if you get some of them, hold on to them to sell them back later for higher, or you can sell them now. It's fine to get upgrade as well. Like I mentioned before, you want to get upgrades as soon as you can. You want to pump your character with a lot of power so you can farm harder and better contents. Alright, so if you've been playing Settler of Khadgar since the start, this is probably the third time setting up Kingsmarch for you, and same for me. Since I play both 3.25 Necro Settlers and now Legacy of Phrecia. If you're new, here's why Kingsmarch is such a big deal. If you set up your town and send out valuable shipments, the actual shipments can give you a chance to get mirror shards, and if you collect 20 of them, that will turn into a mirror of Calandra, the single most valuable currency in PoE 1. It is, however, time gated, so you want to prepare your town accordingly. At the start, you won't have all the building maxed out, so you want to have to upgrade them in the correct order to get the most out of your resource. Your first priority should be getting mining to level 11, and this is because at level 11, you will gain gold equal to your ore that you mark in your maps. This means that if you are running a lot of maps, this will be a huge source of gold to help fund everything else, which is a good priority to have. Then you want to get smelting to level 7. This way you can smelt Verisiums, which you will need later, but you don't need it to level past 7 for now. Disenchanting at level 11. This one is actually super important because you will be disenchanting unique rare items for dust, and that is what you need to send out those mirror shot shipments. So upgrade this building. Feeding the disenchanter with a lot of items for as much dust as you can is always going to be good. For starter, I recommend optimizing it by picking up all the rings, outlet, and all the stuff and feed them here. Speaking of which, I do highlight them on my loot filter as well. Recruiting to level 11. So this lets you hire high quality worker, which will speed up everything that you do in town. So you want to fill up your worker slot with the best one you can find, especially important to do this on your farm. For setting up your farm, you just need to do what I do here. I have 2 corn and 2 wheat farm, and I save the middle slot for 1 corn and 1 wheat for them to benefit from the adjacency bonus, and you will get this at level 11. Then you can just run 1 farm with the blue xanthanum, and for the last slot, it is going to be flexible. You can use it to balance out the crops between the wheat and the corn. For shippings, you can upgrade this last. Your resource will naturally accumulate early on, so you don't need to rush shipping upgrades. In fact, keep them at lower level is okay, and use them to send out those small filler shipments. For the early shipment strategy, once you get your hands on some Verisium bar, you can start sending out small shipments to Ribbenfell or Gakanu. And Ribbenfell, if you send out 2 of the Verisium bar, you will be able to get scarabs and runes. If you're lucky, you might get power runes, which is extremely rare and expensive. So there's no jackpot if you do choose to do it this way. 2 Verisium bar is essentially nothing, so you're only paying gold to send out these shipments. If you send your shipments out to Gakanu, this will give you back stack decks which are worth about 5 chaos per shipments. Nothing too crazy, but this does add up over time. Overall, I've made several videos covering this in the past league, and honestly, not much has really changed. If you guys want a refreshers, I can probably do an updates on that, but you can also drop questions in my Discord if you're stuck. Since this is going to be a short leak, we might not have time to send out big shipments, but if you follow this priority, you are going to have a good time upgrading your Kingsmarch. For now, I'm going to focus on farming more currency to take the build further, so expect more on that soon, and let me know how your Kingsmarch is coming along, and as always, thank you for watching.